Hi everyone, Adam here, and welcome to another episode of Talk of the Trade, hosted and created by TRADEiD. Talk of the Trade brings together the leading voices across photo ID and access control to discover key trends, challenges, and emerging opportunities for our reseller community. Let's jump straight into today's episode. Enjoy. Caroline, Jackson, pleasure to have you here with us today. Thank you both for joining us. I'm going to jump straight in, Caroline, put you on the spot, and let's go through the elephant in the room, aging credentials and the risk to installers.
So when we think about aging credentials, we're not thinking about magstripe, that sort of stuff anymore. We're considering PROCS. PROCS is technology that's 30 plus years old, like 90s, and it just doesn't hold security of buildings. It doesn't hold security of your staff. So HRID, obviously, with our readers, with the Signo and the CEOS, is we're looking to obviously help people migrate to that safer security piece. One of the stories I do like to tell around PROCS that kind of makes it a bit more relevant in the market, where people don't understand the difference, like it's just a card, it's just giving you access to a building, right? Is looking at sort of where the business and industry is being with cybersecurity. So for the last maybe 10 years, a lot of the focus for IT has been managing the application security. So preventing people getting hacked. You look at Jaguar Land Rover, you look at Co-op, Marks and Spencers. They've all massively budgeted and looked towards protecting their businesses from cybersecurity and having data hacks, etc., etc. It's the same thing with PROCS. So what we're seeing now is a lot of companies are employing like a physical hack, pen testing of a building, where they'll try and tailgate someone. They'll try and steal credentials through like a flipper, through basic machines that you can buy on like Amazon, for example, and put them in a briefcase. I've heard of stories where they're being put in toilets. They'll clone a card and people access the building, and they can get all the way through to a data center. And the companies that are employing people to do this are then going to a server room, leaving a note a week later. They're going to get the results from the companies, and they're like going to a server room, open up the I don't know, server room door, and on the back of it's a post-it note saying, "We've managed to get this far into your building." And that's the problem with PROCS. It's low frequency and it's super clonable. Even like MyFair Classic and more recent technologies are clonable. But what we as an industry have come up, and HID specifically, is CEOS. There's a MyFair DES5 EV3, which is another product which is, at this point in time, unclonable. It's super secure. I don't know if you wanted to pop in, Jackson, with like your kind of thoughts on PROCS and migration.
Well, before I joined this company in this industry, I've seen so many of these PROCS cards out there, and I didn't realise before I started here how unsecure they are. So I always think of the analogy of somebody said to me, you don't have a card from the 80s, but a lot of people are still using cards from the 80s. People think the card is just, it's not that important, it's a cheap little piece of plastic. But that one cheap piece of plastic, if we don't upgrade it to like CEOS or to DESFire, they could be putting many businesses at risk just because of the just not really thinking about it. Because when you're thinking you've got a reader, a controller, a system, maglocks, got so much to think about, the card is always the last things that's thought about. So I find it crackers. Like I see stories all the times of people just going to Timpson's and buying a cloner. Yeah, and I'd tell people these stories like, no, that can't be true. And I was like, go and buy your own one and you can go and try it out.
Yeah. And the question to you both then, to start with you, Caroline, like, if you're speaking to an installer about this topic, then what's the message you want to get across? What should they be doing now? How should they be acting in these circumstances if their end user or the opportunity that's come to them is using an aging credential?
The key pitch really for an installer, an integrator, is talking about security. It's understanding and educating them on the fact that the PROCS just isn't secure. I mean, even down to the point when they're doing like a site survey, for example, and they find a digital keypad, it's asking the question of like, have any employees left recently? Have there been any issues from a HR perspective recently? Have they returned their card? When was the last time you changed your digital keypad? And probably about 90% of the time, HR haven't thought about it. So there's real high risk. If you've got someone who's a little bit annoyed or, been laid off, that they can still access the building. With things like CEOS, certainly if you're using a mobile credential, which hopefully we'll come on to, is the fact that you can revoke those straight away. So people don't have the access to the building.
I'd also say with the newer cards, there's a lot more flexibility in what you can do with it. Like with a PROTS card, there are door access, you can use it on printers, but with a DesFire card, it gives you a lot more options of what you can use with it. You can use it in your HR system, like you're saying, on the printers, your lockers, your payment systems. So even if it's increased security, like for the same price as the PROTS cards and DesFire cards, you can do a lot more with it.
Yep. So I think that's the summary message from that theme, should we say, then, is that installers should be challenging that conversation, starting the conversation, highlighting the risk.
A lot of the conversation I have with installers, they're talking about the migration path, but with this Signo, with the standard profile, you can have a PROTS card and a DesFire card all working in the same space. So I think like your solutions does really help with that migration path.
Yeah, and I think as well, just the security piece as a whole is probably a wider business objective for the organisation to now listen, take on board that the agent credential could impact them in much bigger ways. So just moving from that topic over to kind of looking at expansion projects, phase migrations, and we often hear the words like rip and replace, which, as you guys probably know also isn't often the right answer. So just give us a bit of intro, Caroline, on phase migrations and where things like COS, Signo now play into that once the agent credential has been identified.
One of the best things about HID is the fact that it doesn't necessarily matter what the back end looks like. So we're interoperable with 95, 96, probably even more than that, of the other vendors and manufacturers around. We are a hardware company, so it depends a lot on the software side. So having to swap in, swap out might not be the case. If it's a HID estate, it's great because most of our readers recently, and certainly the Signos, are all future-proof. So you don't have to worry about ripping and replacing. If you do have like procs throughout, but you're looking to upgrade to something that's more future-proof or mobile or whatever that may be, then obviously you've got the benefit of using a COS card and having that multi-technology. So you can look and concentrate on like a project that's separate to procs being the important part to rip out or replace, or just update on the outside of the building so you know who's coming in, and then you can go inwards and quite like concentrate on the areas that are of importance that way.
And just touching on that point there, Jackson, over to you, something you've probably been involved in with a number of the installers is starting on those smaller areas of a building or a campus or an office and kind of building a smaller approach first and then scaling out. Is that something we're seeing more from installers now that those opportunities are coming in?
I'd say definitely, because in an ideal world, you would just rip and replace every reader and just do it all in one go. But it's not how the world works. If you're in a big bank, for example, you're needing access all the time, so you have to pick. So like you were saying before, go for the areas that need the most increased security, getting rid of them PROTS cards, potentially even using the Amico and going down the biometric route. It's doing it in phases rather than doing it in one go.
Like the perfect benefit for a system integrator, installer, or even the end user is the fact that they can then budget. Because again, with the world as it is and situations as they are with climate, is that some companies just don't have the money to do that, especially when the budgets move from facilities to IT, for example. IT have probably already got their budget for the year and they want to buy some snazzy new software. They don't want to be worrying about building security or just don't have the staff with the capabilities with staff shortages and skill shortages. So it offers up an additional layer of like, well, don't worry, we can phase this over a year, 2 years, months, however which way you want to work it.
I think as well, just to go a bit further past on that, is I think it's given, when they're doing these phased upgrades, it's giving them the right advice at the right time. So I'm working on a project at the moment and looking at about 300 readers, and they were looking for low frequency readers. And obviously an order's an order, it's fantastic. But my first thought when I got into it was like, we should really be looking at high frequency here, especially because who the end user is. And now they've sort of remodeled it all. And I won't want to be in a position where I've not told them to start looking at the future and just buy the readers now, because then in 5 years down the line, potentially, they'll have to look at going through the high frequency route and start over again. So we're giving the right advice at the start. They might not have to change as many readers.
I think that's an interesting point. I'll move on to that where, speaking to you both today, we've got the manufacturer and obviously TRADEiD with TRADEiD's skill set and knowledge in the industry. With these projects then, you mentioned there, like, about getting it right at the start, like, there's probably a lot of installers watching this that probably aren't aware of where TRADEiD can help in that process from an early phase, sort of spec, and bringing somebody like HID into the conversation. more so to get it right for the customer and give the right product, but also when we talk about margin and eroding margins post-installation. So just expand on that little bit of a piece about what TRADEiD can bring to the table here.
Well, I think with TRADEiD, we're specialists in access control. We don't work with CCTV, we don't work with intruder, we work with fire, and we work with 5 or 6 key manufacturer partners like HID, and that allows us to have great knowledge, great expertise. We can bring on the manufacturers on board from day dot if required. And it just gives us a little bit extra because I don't want to just be somebody who just sells a product. I want to make sure we're selling the right product and right solution. Because at the end of the day, the most important person in all this is the end user. It's not us, it's not the installer, it's the final result. And I want to give my installer, my customer, the right advice, so then he gives their customer the right advice.
Yep, perfect. And we're talking there about like bigger projects and expansions and migrations. And I'm going to throw a term over at you, Caroline, that HID and a lot of your peers and people like Matt Haynes use a lot of the time, which is smart buildings. How do our installers, our reseller community watching today bring HID into that conversation from an access control perspective?
Also, just to go over that term smart buildings and what we sort of see as HID, it sort of goes to how architecture is changing and how architects are looking at buildings, making the inside of them a bit prettier, right? So obviously we had the Signo White that came out last year just as a kind of blending in, and we have the Decor as well, which is very popular in Europe, just to make those buildings look a little bit cleaner on the inside. Um, it's also about the customer experience and the consumer. There's becoming a priority. So yes, obviously the architects are wanting their money for making the building look beautiful, but they want to have a really good experience from coming into the door through the whole way. So again, the credential doesn't end at the door. It's your printer and everything else. And if you're in a building, a smart building, whether it's a block of offices or a housing, you need to have that sort of like seamless experience. And smart buildings for us, and what's really important these days, is sustainability. So then the conversation becomes around mobile. So gone are the days so much where people are asking for cards. Obviously, it's still a massive part of the market, but we're seeing growth of about 30% plus a year on mobile credentials. So it's changing where obviously the younger folk are coming in. Everything's on your phone these days. You're going to leave your card at home sometimes, and you can get obviously a visitor card, temporary card, but you never leave your phone. Your phone is always in your pocket. If you've forgotten your phone, you go home. And it's just about that sort of experience, one of the things we're looking at doing is increasing the distance from the door. So you're walking up, you're not even having to take your phone out of your pocket. It's all about that consumer experience.
I think proof in the pudding there, because at our offices here in Stockport, obviously we use both formats. So we have a physical credential, in and around the office for visibility, but we use obviously HID mobile access for entrance into the building. And I'll be honest, after using a card for 10 years to now use the mobile, it is so much easier. And like I said, that experience is just quick and easy, tap at the door, I'm in, but I've still got the physical credential. So when we just talk about the smart buildings and the types of people coming into our buildings now, which obviously you've mentioned there, where does Amico play into this conversation? And is that why Amico has been brought to the table as to kind of meet those needs a little bit? Sorry, put you on the spot there, but
No, so the Amico came into the market because I think HID realised that obviously biometrics and facial recognition is something that's going to be coming into the market more and more. Our competitors are obviously doing it. So we took a bit of time. HID being the company that it is, we don't just test to the limits of what's a legal requirement in the industry. We go above and beyond. And again, I always happily invite anyone to come to our R&D department to see exactly how strenuous our testing is a product. But it's just one of those things that it does help with that access. It has the 5 different modular access controls. So you can have the scramble pad, for example, makes it a little bit difficult when you've got the digital PACS, but also it kind of adds to like that layer of security, multi-factor. You can still have a card, and obviously people still want to have cards of lanyards because sometimes if you work in security and you're the front desk of a multi-tenanted office, someone can use their mobile to get into the building, but maybe you want to see a lanyard that's got a face on, or it's got a printed ID on it as well. So you've got that sort of second level of security there too.
I think just to summarise on the conversation so far, and again, if we look at HID's current portfolio, and for both installers or our reseller community here at TRADEiD, there is a lot of opportunity. in terms of you've got the aging credentials, we've got the move from things like Proxpoint to Signo. We've got obviously mobile coming into play, more popular, and obviously now Amico added to that conversation. So, Jackson, would you agree on that? That, our community have got a lot to go at, a lot of great opportunity within the current portfolio?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like I said, when I first started 4 years ago, how technology has changed so quickly them 4 years is crazy to me. So how people are still using cards from the 80s is also really crazy to me. So there is so much opportunity, not just for driving growth and sales, but just to increase security around the country.
Yeah, and I think as well, like we said earlier on, we've got a great inventory from HID paired with, our skill set knowledge, things like site visits, that manufacturer support, just so important of getting that project right. And you've seen that firsthand quite recently, haven't you? Just tell us a little bit about a project where you're involved with a manufacturer, and just, the benefit of that to people watching.
Oh yeah, so recently we were working on a project in a council in London. Um, the incumbent installer had basically retired and sort of left them to it, and they had prox cards, they had legacy readers, and I think they were a bit panicked because, like I said, the incumbent had basically just left them. So we got the manufacturer involved, did a site survey with us, the manufacturer, and then have introduced this to an installer. And now that the council have got a brand new system, we're going to be migrating from, I believe, from prox cards over to CIOS. But we've installed the readers so they have that migration path. And then they're looking to expand to a sister council as well. And this is all from the site surveys we've done.
Yeah, so again, so important to get it right from the start and just that future-proof solution. So just moving on, Caroline, I'm going to touch now on the Performance Series initiative. So this was something that HID rolled out the back end of last year, which some of our installer or reseller community would have been aware of. It was predominantly focused on Signo at the back end of last year. I believe there's a bit of an update, and you've got some exciting news to share with us today.
Yeah, so HID last year sponsored Restart Racing Cars, which is BTCC, so British Touring Car Championship. The team did really well last year, and what we're excited to obviously announce this year is that we'll be doing not only a tour of all of the tracks and offering a lot of you guys, yourselves, integrators and customers, the chance to go to track days. We're also going to be visiting sites, and it's called the HID Performance Series this time. So yes, there'll still be the Signo piece, but we're really going to focus around the credentials, the prox conversation, and how we can help that path to migration. I think just to touch back, just what I was saying about the cybersecurity piece is that people don't want to do it until it's happened to them. And when I worked in cybersecurity a few years ago, you'd always have that. I'm not prepared to buy for the application software to kind of stop these attacks, but I've got a budget when it does happen. And it's about kind of educating people. And that's what we're going to try and do on this tour, is educate them as to why it's so important. Don't wait until it's too late and, you're having to send out an email that GDPR is being compromised, etc. So we're really excited to do this. There's going to be some really fun prizes, some really good opportunities to talk and understand and educate yourselves a bit more about HID.
Yeah, and I'll touch a little bit more in a second about TRADEiD's play in this. I believe, and a little birdie told me that you're going to be launching something at the security event at the back end of April, or a bit more on the performance initiative, be on show.
What's going to be on the stand?
Potentially, are you allowed to go that far, or?
So obviously with the car and the sponsorship in mind, we're certainly looking forward to having and hosting a simulator on the stand. There's going to be a few other bits and pieces and goodies. We are hoping to have the car as well. I think that's something the marketing are dealing with, and I'm sort of out of the loop a bit, but it's certainly going to be a very big focus around performance and restart racing. Hopefully, Chris Smiley should be there as well for one or two of the days. So
Fantastic. And I think then, obviously, any of our installers or community that are watching, we'd encourage you all, obviously, to, if you are going to the security event, to pop over to the HID stand. There'll be a number of TRADEiD staff in and around the venue during the 4 days. I know you're there, Jackson, with a few other colleagues, Pete Walsh. So definitely pop over. I think just on the Performance Series initiative, our plans on that is we're obviously arranging site visits. So Jackson and the team are going to be contacting the customers. And what we're hoping to do is come onto site with Caroline, yourself, and obviously some of the HID PACS team, is deliver more of that educational piece. And I think that's the important message here, that it is all around educating the installers and especially those that have contact with the end user customer, is being able to spot those opportunities, for the agent credential, the prox point to Signo, the need for a physical credential and a mobile credential. Because often, like I said, we are stuck in the loop. We get wrapped up with day-to-day tasks, and orders will still come in for cards and will get processed, and we've kind of like just delayed that opportunity. So I think the educational piece is delivering some training. There'll be some training videos. We'll obviously have the touring car. So if you are an installer or one of our reseller community watching, your account managers will be in touch. They'll obviously try to arrange that. But again, I think it's a great piece to just, like I say, be in their environment where we're delivering that training to them in their world. Allows them to obviously ask the questions that are relevant to them and make it really personalised. And again, I think the main thing that we've spoken about, Jackson, with why we wanted to get out on site is that for us, it's about helping them win more customers. It's about bringing that upgrade opportunity forward, bringing HID into the room for more conversations. But for them as well, feeling confident with the product and obviously for the support with TRADEiD. So something I'm excited about. I know you've already probably started the conversations with a few, yeah?
I honestly can't wait for this. This is, for me, one of the best initiatives we've done as a group. I think integrators have got so much to do, like I say, different products, different sectors, and technology is changing in all of them so quickly. So if we can be there just to support a little bit, I can't wait to do it.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that, let's say, rounds up today. We've touched on some great pieces there, very informative from you both. I think the final summary message from me and going out to our community, especially to the installers that are sat on customer databases of aging projects, should we say, or aging credentials, is if you aren't asking the question, then somebody else will be. So get on the front foot. Use the support of TRADEiD, use the support of HID PACS, and bring those conversations forward. Bring us into the room. We will help you win those projects. So thank you to you both today for your time. Appreciate that, and we'll speak to you soon.